There was a time, not so long ago, that there was no bigger name in baseball than Josh Hamilton. Hamilton was an annual All-Star, appeared in multiple World Series, and won an MVP award. He led baseball in multiple offensive statistics, was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and put on one of the most iconic home run derby performances in history.
And wait a minute! Did that go where we think it went?
But then, seemingly out of nowhere, he vanished, leaving fans wondering, what happened? That's what we're going to figure out today. How, in the span of just a few years, Josh Hamilton went from being baseball's biggest star to one of its biggest disgraces. To do that, though, we need to go back to where the story begins. Raleigh, North Carolina, 1981. Before he was anything else, Josh Hamilton was a baseball player. The younger of two brothers, Hamilton's parents made it clear that baseball was their number one priority. His father, Tony, would drive hundreds of miles to watch him play, while his mother, Linda, missed just one of his games in 12 years. By the time he was a high schooler, Josh stood at 6'4", wore size 19 shoes, and could reach 97 miles an hour on the mound. Scouts flocked to Hamilton's games by the dozen to watch him play. He was compared to the likes of Ken Griffey Jr., Alex Rodriguez, and Mickey Mantle. He was widely considered one of the top two prospects in the country, the other being Texas high schooler Josh Beckett. Sure enough, when the 1999 draft came around, Josh Hamilton was the first overall pick by the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, a team in just its second year of existence. According to scout Mark McKnight, the main factor behind Tampa's decision to draft Hamilton was his character. "You read so many bad things about professional athletes these days," he said, "but I don't think you ever will about Josh." With his record $3.96 million signing bonus, Josh was able to pay off his parents' debts. They retired from their jobs and started following their son's games full-time. They drove behind the team bus on road trips, cooked all of his meals, and did his laundry. Hamilton spent the 2000 season in Single A with the Charleston Riverdogs, where he was a South Atlantic League All-Star, won the MVP award, and was voted Minor League Player of the Year by USA Today.
It's a thrill for me. I've worked hard, all my life, and have fun playing this game, and just a dream come true.
He was as close to a sure thing as a prospect could be, which makes what happened next that much more tragic. On the evening of February 28, 2001, Josh and his parents climbed into the family pickup truck for a drive. They were heading home from a spring training game in St. Petersburg, towards their house in nearby Parrish, when disaster struck. As they pulled into an intersection, a dump truck going 40 miles an hour ran a red light, T-boning the Hamiltons' pickup. They were rushed to a nearby hospital, where Tony and Linda were treated for injuries. Fortunately, Josh appeared to be unharmed. Over the next few days, however, it became clear that this wasn't the case. He began experiencing excruciating pain in his back, which he compared to being stabbed with a knife. He landed on the disabled list, while his parents returned to North Carolina to recover. Looking back, there are likely a number of factors that led to Josh Hamilton's life going off the rails. But if you had to pinpoint one moment in time where things went wrong, this would probably be it. Frustrated by his injury, bored from the lack of baseball, flush with cash, and unsupervised by his parents for the first time ever, Josh Hamilton, the prototypical all-American boy, sought a release. And he found it in the form of alcohol, drugs, and over 24 tattoos, all of which he could obtain in the Florida Tattoo Parlor, where he spent most of his free time. In 2002, at the age of 20, Hamilton drank his first beer. A few hours later, he snorted his first line of cocaine. It was a decision he would later call the worst of his life. Pretty soon, he was using on a regular basis, including during the 2002 baseball season. He still played fairly well, but the Devil Rays noticed a change in their prospect's behavior. Concerned about his mental state, Tampa sent Hamilton to a sports psychologist, whom he told about his substance use. The next day, Josh was sent to the Betty Ford Clinic for rehab. He left after just 8 days. It was during spring training of 2003 that Hamilton failed his first drug test. He was suspended for 30 days and eventually took the entire 03 season off. Despite hopes for a return in 2004, he was once again suspended for violating another drug test in February. He'd go on to fail 2 more tests over the next month, resulting in a year-long suspension from baseball. In early 2005, he was arrested for smashing the windshield of a friend's truck. By 2006, the former first overall draft pick had been out of baseball for 4 years. In that time, every one of the 4 number 1 picks to follow Hamilton, Adrian Gonzalez, Joe Mauer, Brian Bullington, and Delman Young, had made their MLB debut. In Tampa Bay, Carl Crawford and Rocco Baldelli blossomed into all-star caliber outfielders. Josh Hamilton, meanwhile, spent his days and nights drinking and using drugs. He'd go days without sleeping, then pass out. He was paranoid, hallucinating demonic faces, and SWAT teams raiding his house. He got married in 2004, using the last $200,000 left from his signing bonus to buy a home. The rest he spent on booze and drugs. Within 6 months of their wedding, Josh and his wife Katie were separated. With his marriage on the rocks, skyrocketing debt, and declining health, the question wasn't whether Josh Hamilton would still be a major leaguer. It was whether he would survive. It was 2 a.m. on the night of October 1st, 2005, that Josh Hamilton was found. His face was pale, he'd lost 40 pounds, and he was filthy. His eyes were glazed over, and his face sunken as he sat, trembling, on his grandmother's doorstep. He hadn't slept in 4 days, a shell of his former self. His grandmother took him in on one condition: he had to get clean. If not, she told him, he'd be back out on the street. He started going to meetings and working out again, like he'd tried before. This time, though, it felt different. It wasn't long before he started thinking about baseball again. But while he was still technically part of the Devil Rays system, it wasn't like he could just show back up to practice like nothing had happened. So he got to work training, connecting with former coach Roy Silver, who owned a baseball academy in Florida. Silver made a deal with Josh: work at the academy, which was located at Jack Russell Stadium, the former spring training home of the Philadelphia Phillies, and he could have free use of the facilities at the end of the day. Hamilton agreed. He spent his mornings cleaning toilets and raking the infield, his afternoons practicing baseball, and his nights sleeping on an air mattress in one of the Phillies' old executive offices. It was during one of these nights that he had a dream in which he was participating in a home run derby at Yankee Stadium. By the time he woke up, though, he couldn't remember how it ended. In June of 2006, MLB allowed Josh Hamilton to rejoin Tampa's minor league squad. In order for this to happen, they had to run him through waivers, which made him available for any MLB team to claim. Nobody did. He was left off of the Devil Rays' 40-man roster following the season, leaving him eligible for the Rule 5 draft. He was selected by the Chicago Cubs, who immediately traded him to the Cincinnati Reds for $100,000. Hamilton began 2007 with a cautious sense of optimism. He was now 25 years old, a far cry from the can't-miss prospect he'd been viewed as back in 1999. Still, following a spring training which saw him hit .403 over 25 games, it was hard not to be hopeful. On April 2nd, 2007, Josh Hamilton played in his first major league game, nearly 8 years after he was originally drafted. Of the 60 players to be selected first overall in MLB history, only 3 have been older than Hamilton was when he debuted. He recorded his first MLB hit a week later, a home run off of the Diamondbacks' Edgar Gonzalez. Through the end of April, he had hit 6 and was named the NL Player of the Month. By the end of the 2007 season, Hamilton had played in 90 games, hit 19 home runs, and posted an OPS of .922. He became a fan favorite in center field, and, more importantly, was able to stay clean. Just a few years earlier, an achievement like this would have seemed like a miracle, an act of God. And to Hamilton, that's exactly what it was. He credited his success to his faith, without which, he said, he never would have made it. Josh Hamilton was back, and he was just getting started. If 2007 was the year Hamilton broke out, in 2008, he exploded. The Reds traded him to the Texas Rangers for pitchers Edinson Volquez and Danny Herrera. Hamilton came out swinging, slotting into the 3-hole for Texas behind Ian Kinsler and Michael Young. He was named the AL Player of the Month for April, and won the award again in May. He was featured on the cover of Sports Illustrated, in a story chronicling his recovery and return to the sport. He was compared to the character Roy Hobbs from The Natural, a film about a player who vanished from baseball for years, only to re-emerge as the finest hitter in the game. Hamilton was named a starter to the 2008 All-Star Game, receiving the most fan votes of any outfielder. He was also selected to participate in the Home Run Derby. The Derby was held in New York at the old Yankee Stadium, which was set to be demolished following the season. This was a ballpark that was no stranger to historic moments, having played host to legends from Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig to Derek Jeter and Mariano Rivera. So perhaps it was fitting that as fans prepared to say goodbye to this beloved stadium, Josh Hamilton treated them to one last moment of baseball history. Josh Hamilton's 2008 performance remains one of the most iconic displays of power in home run derby history. After it was over, he told reporters that the experience was like living out his dream in real life. The dream continued for the rest of 2008. He finished the year with a .304 average, 32 home runs, and an AL Best 130 RBI. He won a Silver Slugger Award and finished 7th in the MVP balloting. The 2009 season marked a regression for Hamilton on several fronts. On the field, he struggled to match his previous year's numbers, although, in fairness, this wasn't entirely his fault. In a May game against the Angels, he made a leaping grab to rob Howie Kendrick of an extra base hit. In the process, he slammed into the outfield wall, resulting in an abdominal tear that would land him on the DL for much of June. He returned in early July, in time to start the All-Star game in St. Louis. Off the field, however, things took a turn for the worse. See, that was the summer it was revealed that Josh Hamilton's sobriety was not going as smoothly as previously thought. On August 8th, 2009, the website Deadspin posted a series of photos featuring Hamilton in some compromising positions. It was reported that these pictures were taken in March of that year, while the Rangers were conducting spring training in Arizona. The reigning home run derby champ was seen drinking, asking where he could obtain cocaine, and discussing plans to go to a strip club. In a statement to the press, Hamilton revealed that he told his wife about what happened the day after, as well as the Texas Rangers and Major League Baseball. It was also announced that he would not face discipline from the team. In the context of what came before, however, it was hard not to see this story as a sign of trouble. For now, though, most of the people involved were content to simply wipe their hands and move on. Now, 2009 had been a bit of a letdown for the Rangers. They failed to reach the playoffs for a 10th straight year, while several key players suffered extended absences due to injury. Still, if the offense showed up, the roster stayed healthy, and a few other things fell into place, there was reason for hope entering the 2010 campaign. As it turned out, 2010 would be the Texas Rangers' best season since, well, ever. They went 90-72, winning the AL West by 9 games. Hitters like Ian Kinsler, Nelson Cruz, and Vladimir Guerrero dominated at the plate, while C.J. Wilson, Colby Lewis, and Neftali Feliz led the way on the mound. They had 6 All-Stars on the roster, including midseason acquisition Cliff Lee, who'd go on to finish 7th in the Cy Young vote. If there was anyone who exemplified the Rangers' success in 2010, though, it was Josh Hamilton. His batting average was .359, the best in baseball and over 20 points more than the next highest. He led MLB in slugging percentage and OPS, and hit a total of 32 home runs, despite missing 29 games due to a fractured rib. Even with the DL stint, Hamilton finished 2010 with 8.7 wins above replacement. This was the highest WAR in Major League Baseball, and second highest in Rangers history. Let's take it one step further though. Had he not gotten injured, and continued this breakneck pace over a full season, Hamilton would have ended up with 10.6 WAR, tying him for the 25th best offensive season of all time, alongside Robin Yount, Rogers Hornsby, Ted Williams, Willie Mays, and Barry Bonds. At the end of the 2010 season, Josh Hamilton was voted the American League Most Valuable Player. Obviously. The Rangers won the division series in 5 over the Rays, advancing to the ALCS versus the Yankees. They won that as well, and reached the World Series for the first time in franchise history. Hamilton, for his part, went 7 for 20 with 4 home runs and 7 RBI, winning the ALCS MVP. Out of respect for their teammates' struggles with alcohol, the Rangers celebrated their pennant win with ginger ale instead of champagne. Unfortunately, the Rangers were no match for the San Francisco Giants, who took the World Series 4-1. Josh Hamilton, Texas's most valuable player, went just 2 for 20 with 1 homer. He struggled to find his form in 2011, suffering a fracture in April that caused him to miss a quarter of the season. 2011 was also marked by an unexpected tragedy in Texas, one which would rock Hamilton and the fan base to their core. On July 7th, Rangers fan Shannon Stone was attending a home game, along with his young son. In the second inning, Josh Hamilton retrieved a foul ball and tossed it in Shannon's direction. He reached out to catch the ball, but lost his balance, falling to the ground 20 feet below him. An hour later, Shannon was pronounced dead. The death of Shannon Stone was a freak accident, one which left his family, friends, and Rangers fans stricken with grief. Chief among them was Hamilton, who struggled massively after the fact. And while nobody could honestly blame him, it's safe to say this tragedy had a profound effect on the player's mental state. Not long after the accident, Hamilton suffered another loss when Johnny Narin left Texas to join the Brewers' coaching staff. Narin, who had known Josh since he was 9, was the star's so-called handler. For years, he had served as Hamilton's accountability partner, someone he could count on for guidance as he recovered from addiction. Now, with Narin on his way to Milwaukee, Hamilton was left without one of his strongest sources of support. The Rangers, meanwhile, advanced to the World Series once again, this time versus the St. Louis Cardinals. By Game 6, Texas had come to within 1 strike of a trophy. Sadly, this wasn't to be.
Back at the wall, it's off the wall. Freeze has tied it.
The Cardinals won Game 7 6-2, sending the Rangers home ringless for the second year in a row. That winter, reports emerged that Josh Hamilton had suffered another relapse. He admitted to having had several beers one night in January of 2012, before inviting Ian Kinsler to a bar to talk. At a press conference held a few days later, Hamilton said that his teammate had no idea he'd been drinking.
For everybody who I have hurt, for everybody who that, fans, kids, people who have addictions look to me, look up to me. I apologize to you.
In the aftermath of this story, the Rangers put a pause on their extension talks with Hamilton, who was set to enter free agency at the end of the 2012 season. Eager to take his personal life out of the spotlight, Hamilton put up another impressive season at the plate. He hit .368 with 21 home runs through the first 2 months and was named to a 5th straight All-Star game. His 11 million fan votes were the most in history. On May 8th in Baltimore, Josh Hamilton made another kind of history, becoming just the 16th player ever to hit 4 home runs in a game. He hit a double as well, going 5 for 5 in total, with 8 runs batted in. He had 18 total bases, setting a new American League record. He finished the season with 43 home runs, 128 RBI, and a 141 OPS plus over 148 games. He won his 3rd Silver Slugger and finished 5th in the MVP race. The Rangers, meanwhile, lost to the Orioles in the wildcard game. Hamilton and the Rangers entered the offseason having failed to agree on an extension, leaving the slugger free to test the open market. A month later, news broke that the 2010 MVP had indeed found a suitor in the AL West, and it was not Texas. On December 13, 2012, ESPN reported that Josh Hamilton had signed a 5-year, $125 million contract with the Los Angeles Angels. This came as a surprise to many, including the Rangers, who had hoped to re-sign the All-Star. With this deal, Hamilton tied Ryan Howard as the second highest paid player in baseball, trailing only Alex Rodriguez of the Yankees. Thus began Hamilton's tenure with the Angels. It did not go well. While he played in 151 games in 2013, his most since 2008, he regressed in virtually every aspect. His power numbers declined, and his batting average of .250 was a career low. The Angels disappointed as well, finishing third in the AL West. He lost half the 2014 season to injuries. While he was on the field, he continued his lackluster performance at the plate. Angels fans, increasingly frustrated with Hamilton's underperformance, turned their anger on the star. He went hitless in the ALDS against the Royals, who swept LA en route to the World Series. Still reeling from the playoff loss, Hamilton underwent surgery in early 2015 to fix a separated shoulder. As he recovered from the operation, information was revealed that would put a permanent end to his time as an Angel. On February 26, 2015, ESPN reported that the outfielder had relapsed from cocaine and alcohol. Realizing that a drug test would come up positive, Josh voluntarily reported himself to Major League Baseball. Despite an arbitrator ruling that he could not be suspended, Angels owner Artie Moreno made it clear that he didn't want Hamilton back on the roster. On April 27th, Los Angeles agreed on a deal that would send Hamilton back to the Texas Rangers, his old team. The Angels also agreed to pick up $68 of the $75 million remaining on his deal. In other words, the Angels wanted Hamilton gone so badly that they paid $68 million for him to play for their division rivals. In the end, Josh Hamilton's deal with the Angels would go down as one of the worst signings in baseball history. He was called up by the Rangers on May 25th, receiving a standing ovation upon his return to Arlington.
Josh Hamilton.
It was announced in early 2016 that Hamilton would be undergoing season-ending knee surgery, his third in just 9 months. Texas re-signed him for the 2017 season, but following yet another knee injury in April, they released him. Josh Hamilton would never play Major League Baseball again. In the course of his 9-season career, Hamilton posted a .290 batting average, a .516 slugging percentage, and exactly 200 home runs. Of the 143 individual major leaguers who have won the MVP award, Hamilton had the shortest career of anyone who isn't still an active player. In early 2019, he was inducted into the Rangers Hall of Fame. The honor, however, would be short-lived. In October of 2019, Hamilton was arrested on charges of child abuse, and in 2022 pled guilty to unlawful restraint. He received a year of probation, a $500 fine, and community service. As of today, Josh Hamilton remains persona non grata in Major League Baseball. His fall from grace was swift and permanent. His legacy, which was once one of hope, redemption, and perseverance, is now nothing more than a painful cautionary tale.